Hi, this is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and this is Monday, March 12th. And this will be our chart lesson for today. And it was really kind of an uneventful range day. We spent the entire day with prices in a 5-point range, and really we spent most of the trading day, or at least most of the morning, I would say, in this range right here, which is it's barely even a 3-point range right here. So this is hard trading, and it's hard to make money, and you can really, all you can do is scalp out. If you try to do anything more, you're probably going to get stuck on the wrong side of the trade. And so when it gets like this, I recommend either closing it up or just trying to take quick 4-tick scalps, maybe even less if you get caught in, if what you get caught in turns out to be congestion, so to speak. If it meets our rules on congestion, just don't take the trade. Just sit tight. But let me show you what I saw today. And of course, here's your overnight highs and your overnight lows right here. And those are easy to spot. I usually use the highest closes, and actually I started with this right here, but as the day moved on, I moved it down to these closes here. So that's why it's sitting right there. But I'll move it around during the day. But I always start with usually the highest lows, or the highest, the lowest and high, the highest highs and the lowest lows. In other words, from my initial kind of support and resistance. And if we had something that was left over from the previous day, I'll look at that pretty closely too. So if this would have went any higher, I would have been looking at these highs over here from I believe that's Friday. So, but anyway, yeah, that's Friday. But anyway. This turned out to be your highs for today, which is basically this overnight closing area right here, and this ended up being your overnight lows, or your lows for the day basically was your overnight lows. And we did have this one failed break. That was a great setup. That was one of the best setups of the day. And I actually didn't mark one here that I probably should have. Was this trade right here. I should have marked that one because that was a nice short as well. For some reason I didn't have that one marked. But anyway, let's talk about the trades real quick and then wrap it up, because I marked several entries in here. I always try to mark the entries at the key, that are at key entry points, and those are the trades I try to show. And there's always other trades that I may have taken or that may be there that I don't mark, but they're not really key entry points, so I try to avoid those, because what I'm trying to do is teach unprofitable traders or new traders how to find the best entry points, the high probability trades, the ones that are most likely to succeed. And those are going to be at key entry points, and you'll hear me say that a lot. And just real quickly, your key entry points are always found during pullbacks to the trend line and the EMA, and at the support, strong support down here, and strong resistance areas, which is up here. And that's where you're going to find your key entry points. And these became the key entry points later in the day, because this was your strong resistance across here. And that's pretty obvious by all these highs up here coming across here. And this, even though I've got these trend lines on here, this is not a trend day, but there's always short trends within the main trend, and they're not that hard to find. And this, I drew this one right up through here, and this one actually came off the closes. I got it off the closes rather than the lows, and really the only reason was because if you draw it off the lows, it ends up way down here, and it's kind of flat. And you see it still came into play, but prices were bouncing a little bit earlier every time, and so you get to looking at the closes, and then you see, okay, that makes more sense. Kind of looking at the closes, or maybe looking at, actually I like that the best now after the fact, because, and a lot of times you'll find it that way, you draw it through where it touches the first two bars, and you see it had to go through that one, but it touches that one, and we got a break here and a break here, but we got that first break right there with some closes below it, and then we had two legs up to a new high, and then prices sold off. And I don't even know if you'd call that a new high, but these highs are higher than that one, so it's close enough. And if you see, there's one leg up, two legs back, couple legs back and then a couple legs up for this second leg, and I bet you if you measure those legs, they'll probably be very similar. There's leg one, and there's what I would call leg two, and it came up a little short, but it's close enough to meet our two-leg rules that we look for. But anyway, let's talk about the trades, and then we'll wrap it up. Probably short again today. But this trade, even if you didn't have this trend line, you should have easily recognized all these highs across here. And I probably would have moved this down to here at this point, and that's a failed break higher that immediately reversed. You go short right there, and that was an easy trade down. Any runners were actually safe, and look, you got two legs down, and I'm betting they're a measured move, and there's leg one, and there's leg two, almost a perfect, basically a perfect measured move there if you count the closes. It's one tick difference. So there's your two legs. So the reason I like this one is we had the failed break high, and then this was a second entry short coming off this high as well. So that was a nice setup. But if you caught this one up here, and this is what I'm always talking about, most of your weak traders are trying to get long up here. They're thinking, hey, prices are going up, we're working higher, and if we break above here, then that's probably a great place. Well, that's the worst place to get long. You need to be thinking just the opposite, that this is probably going to break out up here and fail and then come back down and test the lower side, and that is exactly what happened. So this was a great entry. Then you had a second entry short right here with this really bearish bar to go short below, or this bar, either one, and that's a second entry short, and that was another quick move down. And our runners were not safe this time, so then prices kind of went into this congestion, broke this little bit of a trend line, and then had one leg down, a pullback, and then two legs down. And I guarantee those legs are, again, very similar in length, because that's what usually happens. There's leg one, and there's leg two, and look at there, they're very, actually I didn't get it measured just right. There's leg one, and there's leg two. And it was almost a perfect move within a tick. So, and then there's actually two legs in the middle. This is actually a two-legged pullback to the EMA. There's your low, there's your first move up, your pullback, and then your next move up. And you had a little trap right here. And so you could have gone short right here, but this one was really risky. We're very close to this previous support. All these overlapping bars, this is really a large congestion. So I didn't mark this trade. I only marked this one right here because this was a two-legged pullback to the EMA in the first break of the trend line. And when you went short here, you would have got caught in congestion, but if you kept your stop above your signal bar and even above your entry bar, you easily survived this and could have come on down. So I felt like this one was worth marking. But look at this. There's a problem here. You got all these overlapping bars. You got several dojis in here, so that makes this trade questionable. But the reason I liked it was this failed break above this little double top here that reversed, and prices came down here and closed near this low. So that's a good sign, and that's a trap. And even though it took a while to work through, it did. It came on down here and tested this low, and that's where I would have been looking to exit if I were in this trade. I didn't actually take this trade because I was still holding my runners from both of these. I didn't feel like it was worth risking another one. However, I marked it because if you took it, it was okay. There's some reasons why you may not have wanted to take it, but if you did, it's okay. And so I marked it. But it's not a great setup because of the fact that you got all these overlapping bars. And had I entered here when everything started overlapping right here, I would have tried to get out with a tick or two, and you could have done that. Gave you a couple of chances, even though it went on down here. You could have gotten out with a tick or two on several tries, and then if it would have reversed, it wouldn't have hurt you. And even though it did go lower, you might have missed out on a couple more ticks. However, look what happened. This ended up being the low, and prices bounced several more times and ended up going higher for the day. So that's just something to keep in mind. That's what I do when I get stuck in congestion. When the trade triggers, it may look pretty good, but by the time you get a couple more overlapping bars and you start to realize, hey, this is congestion, just try to get out with a tick or two or out at break even and look for your next trade and make your money on your next trade. Don't be greedy, in other words. So, and again, this is not a major trend line, but what I did was I tried to draw it off of these first two bars up here. And you can see if you did that, it kind of gave you this trend, and there's your break, and then your two legs down to a new low. And so it still held the trend line rules, just like always. And then we went into this smaller trading range all the way across here, and you probably should have had this drawn all the way across. But the reason I like this entry was this was one leg down, a pullback that made a lower high, and then we're expecting a second leg down, and there's enough room to scalp out before getting back down here to the lows, and that's exactly where it bounced. And so that was another nice easy scalp. It was, again, not a great setup, but because it was coming off these highs and it made a lower high, that was a good sign, because generally when you start making lower highs in a trading range, eventually prices are going to break on through, and you see that's what happened here. Even though it only turned out to be a short trap, prices did manage to get through. And that's generally a good clue, is that every pullback, notice how prices, the next high is lower and lower. And so even though we aren't making a lot of new lows at this point, the buyers are getting weaker and the sellers are getting stronger. And all they were doing were they simply broke prices lower and trapped everybody and created a large trap. And then you notice what happens after that trap. There's your biggest move of the day. And this was a great setup. It was a failed break below a double bottom, really a much bigger double bottom, a quadruple bottom almost. So there's a lot of support right there. And when prices broke low and reversed, you go long right there. It's a nice bullish reversal type bar, and you see how prices didn't hang around down here very long. They reached that low and they just immediately busted out of there and never came back and kept going higher for the day. That's kind of rejection on that breakout. And this was an easy scalp. Any of your runners would have been safe here, even if you held them through this, and you could have gotten your 5 points out of this if you carried it into the close. And then there was one other setup, which was this one. And as you notice, this is a two-legged pullback. You didn't really have a trend line established yet, so I didn't take this trade, or I wouldn't have taken this trade. I was not even trading by this time, so I did not take this trade. But if you notice, it's a two-legged pullback, but you didn't have any real trend established. It was okay if you went long here because it was a failed breakout, but on something like this, you got to keep your stop below your entry bar, so your stop needed to be down here, and you see if it was this, you survived this. But if you didn't take this setup right here, you definitely should have taken this one, because now you had something to get your trend line off of, and you had a retest of it right here, and both times prices failed, leaving a stem on the bottom and then reversed up. So that's two times to try to break out of there that failed, and then prices broke and went higher. It was questionable if there was enough room to break out here, but on that trap, after a failed break lower, the odds are we're going to break out the top before prices fail. And you can see that's what happened. They broke out and they did fail and tried to pull back, and we went in this range, and eventually they did pull back and test this area like always, and then they went higher again. So this was a nice short trap right here, and if you took this entry, it was okay. It wasn't a great setup because there was a trap here too, because we failed to break lower, but we didn't have any trend line, and we were really coming off the high, so there were strong odds that we may come down and test this low. So that's why this was not necessarily as good an entry as this one right here. There was nothing wrong with going long there, but you need to be prepared to take your stop down here if prices came on down. But for that reason, I didn't really mark that trade. What I'm marking is this trade right here, where this trap was, where prices broke lower and then reversed and went out the high side. So either way, it was a questionable trade, but look at this big bullish move up. Odds are you're going to get a second leg, and this is just a two-legged pullback. And you gotta keep up with these legs, because that really helps you with a clue of knowing which way prices are heading. If you measure that leg and then move it over here, look at what you got. You basically got a measured leg again. So you got to pay attention to these legs, and they're not always hard to see, but as you get more trading practice and you look at charts more often, you'll get more confident and learn to see these much easier. And this is basically a two-legged pullback. There's the first leg, the pullback, and then the second leg. And then you just got this little hesitation with a trap right here that kind of cemented the move to the upside. It was pretty obviously by that time that we were going higher. And we were at least coming back up here to probably break out up here and trap people. But no, that's not what happened. We went on higher, and we really went ahead and tested the other high up here almost. And we kind of got into congestion then. But that was it for the day. I didn't mark any of this. It really got too choppy over here. We were too close to this, but the trend was still up. You see we had the break of that trend line, and then now we're headed up to a new high. Now, whether or not we'll sell off from there, I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. But that's generally the rule on a trend line. And this is also a break out of this trading range, a bigger, stronger break. So we'll probably be trading back in here and test this again during the overnight. We'll just have to see. But that was pretty much it for today. Again, it was just kind of a choppy range day, and we really spent a whole large portion of the day, almost just after the open till noontime, in this small 3-point range. And this is not hardly worth trading unless you're doing what I talked about here, going short off the highs or going long off the lows. And if you did that, you were pretty much okay. And you could have taken this short here. Again, the reason I didn't mark this short was because of this nice that's a bullish move that went all the way from the failed break to the high. When you get a failed break, there's generally going to be a lot of momentum because of the trap that's created. And you can see that that's the case because look, there's no bearish bars up through here all the way back to the top. And so when you get a leg that bullish, the odds are you're going to get another leg, or at least an attempt at another leg. So when prices start pulling back, you should assume that that's just a pullback with the opportunity that prices are probably going to go up higher again and make another leg. So anyway, I'm going to call it a day. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com. Hope you had a good trading day. And if not, hopefully we'll have a better one tomorrow. We'll see you next time.